Distinguished delegates, it's 10 o'clock. I would like to start our workshop. Would you please take your seats, please? So, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I now declare the opening of the third workshop for the Facilitative Sharing of Views under the International Consultation and Analysis Process. I would like to welcome all participants to this event under the SBI and in particular the representatives of 10 non-Annex 1 parties which will undergo the Facilitative Sharing of Views in this session. I'm really looking forward to conducting another successful FSV season with constructive interaction amongst parties. As was demonstrated in past FSV sessions, these workshops allow parties to exchange in a positive manner their experiences on the implementation of the MRV framework and showcase the efforts done at national level to put it in place. Let me congratulate the 10 non-Annex 1 parties who will present during this workshop for submitting the first biennial upload reports and going through the technical analysis process. Their participation in the FSV workshop today marks the completion of their first ICA cycle, which is an achievement unto itself. I would like to especially congratulate Mauritania, the first LDC that submitted its BUR for its effort and achievements. At the same time, I would like to invite other LDCs and SIDs to take the opportunity to participate in the ICA process and submit their BURs, even though the submission is at their discretion. Following the example of these parties, I would like also to encourage more non-Annex 1 parties to submit their first BURs. To facilitate a meaningful process and ensure a positive experience for all, I would like to highlight the modalities and guidelines for international consultation and analysis as contained in Decision 2CP17, paragraphs 56 to 62. And its Annex 4 before we begin. The ICA, including the FSV, will be conducted in a manner that is non-intrusive, non-punitive, and respectful of national sovereignty. It aims to increase the transparency of mitigation action and their effects, and the discussion on the appropriateness of such domestic policies and measures is not part of the process. As per the modalities and guidelines for the ICA contained in Annex 4 of the decision, 2CP17, the BUR and summary report will serve as input to the FSV. The approach for the workshop has been designed in line with modalities and guidelines of the ICA contained in Annex 4 of the decision 2CP17 and implemented based on the feedback received from parties during informal consultations held with all parties in the previous SBI sessions. To ensure effective time management of this session, the maximum time allocated to each party will be 40 minutes for their presentation and engaging in questions and answers. This is due to the large number of parties presenting in one day. Should a party receive no questions, I will move on to the next party. And of course, certain flexibility is envisaged in terms of the time allocated to each party undergoing FSV. While the format of the presentations is at each party's discretion, I have encouraged them to summarize, as to extent possible, information that responds to the questions received in advance from other parties. To ensure all parties have the opportunity to ask questions, I will encourage parties to limit themselves to 2 questions each party in the first round. If time permits, I will open a second round of questions. I will collect several questions from parties in one round and ask the specific party undergoing the FSV to respond to these questions, and thereafter I will move on to the subsequent questions. Parties will present their BURs in alphabetical order, and now I would like colleagues to invite the representatives from India, Mr. Ravi Prasad, National Focal Point, Dr. Jaya Bhatt, IPCC Focal Point, and Professor Amit Garg and Dr. Ajay Raghav to deliver the brief presentation. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. At the outset, a very good morning and greetings from India to all colleagues participating in this FSV workshop. India is concerned about climate change and is committed at the highest level to a global action to mitigate the adverse impacts of this looming threat. India believes in concrete actions on climate change, and the government has demonstrated leadership by significantly ramping up India's green and clean energy targets. These include 40% share of non-fossil fuels in installed capacity by 2030, enhancing energy efficiency in major energy consuming sectors, while simultaneously committing to provide housing for all and power for all. Mr. Chairman, our BUR has been prepared through a participatory process at the national level and has undergone a rigorous internal review and approval process meeting the highest standards of scientific rigor. Apart from complying with the requirements of the convention, India has also voluntarily initiated several measures to abate and alleviate climate change. National Action Plan on Climate Change, comprising 8 national missions, was launched in 2008, and the missions are being implemented for addressing challenges of climate change. Our core NDCs, Mr. Chairman, include 33 to 35% reduction in emission intensity of GDP during 2005 to 2030 and 40% share of non-fossil sources by 2030. We have also announced more than 5 times, Mr. Chairman, increase in the installed capacity of renewable energy generation from 35 gigawatt to 175 gigawatt by 2022. Mr. Chairman, new missions on health, coastal areas have been added. Mr. Chairman, some other policy initiatives of the government include providing LPG as cooking gas to rural households, increasing penetration of LEDs, a clean environment cess on coal, 5 to 10% ethanol blending in petrol, increasing efficiency of coal power plants, and more efficient public transport. We are leapfrogging from Bharat Stage 4, that is equivalent to Euro 4, to Bharat Stage 6, equivalent to Euro 6 standards for vehicular emissions by 2020. Mr. Chairman, 100 smart cities are also being designed to capture recent innovations in climate resilient infrastructure. India has been an active participant in consultation, negotiation, and initiatives on climate change. We have wrestled with the challenge of meeting climate change expectations without sacrificing our developmental goals. We have also set up 2 dedicated funds at the national level: the National Clean Energy Fund, financed by a carbon tax of $6 on each ton of coal, which at $3 per ton of CO2 is comparable internationally. And the second one is the National Adaptation Fund with an allocation of $55.6 million to address the cost of adopting cleaner technologies in sectors such as agriculture, fisheries, water, and forestry. To ensure rational consumption of fossil fuels, we have cut petroleum subsidy by about 26%, and to increase energy generation through cleaner sources and to fund renewable energy projects, we have introduced tax-free infrastructure bonds of about $794 million. Moreover, Mr. Chairman, we propose to create a carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent by 2030 through additional forest and tree cover creation. Thus, India, despite being confronted with developmental challenges and pressure of inclusive and high economic growth, has made serious interventions to address climate change and is consciously taking a path towards decoupling of economic development and greenhouse gas emissions. However, Mr. Chairman, we are aware of the constraints and gaps that still exist. We have identified them in our report, and this will enable us to further improve upon the efforts in future so as to ensure continuous reporting on a consistent basis. Mr. Chairman, India has submitted its first BUR to UNFCCC Secretariat on 22nd January. The BUR has 6 chapters covering all components as per reporting requirements. Mr. Chairman, now I hand over to my colleague, Professor Amit Garg, to take this presentation forward and give you the details of India's first BUR. Over to you, Professor Garg.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all the delegates in this hall. This is the copy of our BUR submitted. You can see a lot of greenery and wind coming there, which is not only for showing, but this is really happening in India. Our solar plant capacity has grown by 81% last year. We are crossing already 50 gigawatt of renewable capacity. So we are really moving ahead on these all these issues. Let me take you through the presentation. The national context is that India is supporting about 17.5% of global population, human population, a big number, of course. And we are also facing consequences of climate change. About 20% of our districts, we have 641 of them, are already facing a path akin to RCP 8.5 already. And our mean temperature has increased by about 0.6 degrees during the last century. It is a serious issue. But despite this, our forest and tree cover is growing. It is about 14% in 2013, and it has grown further. So we are, in a way, our forests are in net sink. And production of environment is a central theme in our planning and way of life across centuries. Our households, especially in rural areas, use a lot of solid fuels. We are very conscious of it. And about 22 million additional LPG connections have been provided to them in last 1 year alone. We also have a sizable number of people living below poverty line. Another sizable number of people who don't have access to formal energy, electricity. But we have also very ambitious targets to provide electricity for all by 2019, which is a huge thing. And we are going ahead on this. And also 40% of new capacity has to be non-fossil. So on one hand, we are looking after the people who are energy poor, and also filling this requirement through clean energy and green energy. So this is very ambitious target. Even then, our low per capita emission is very, very low. Per capita energy consumption is very low presently. We are aspiring to have a very high GDP growth, which would maybe in this period of globalization would help all countries. Our total energy consumption would increase because we are having many energy poor, and maybe GHG emissions would also increase, since if you replace solid fuel, which are biomass, by LPG, which is a fossil fuel, emissions are likely to increase. But of course, we are committed to reducing, as my senior colleague said, 33 to 35% GHG upon GDP between 2000 and 2030. Definitely we are on track. We have a established system. We have about 121 institutions and about 250 odd experts working on areas like national circumstances, greenhouse gas emission estimation, mitigation actions, vulnerability and adaptation. So, and out of these, about 17 institutions which are mapped here have assisted our BUR1 process. You can see that there are institutions in national circumstances, GHG emission inventory, constraint and gaps, mitigation actions, and we are looking into all aspects in a very, very broad and inclusive framework. This is these are the numbers of emissions and removals which are indicated here. You can see that about 70% of our emissions are coming from energy sector. Agriculture is about 20%. IPU is 6%, and others are, of course, our LULUCF is a net sink of about 250 to 300 million ton per year. And our emissions have been growing. In the last decade, they have grown by around 3.4, 3.5% per year. Our GDP has grown by about 6.8% per year. So I think you can see there is a disjoint and decoupling, which is policy driven. It is already happening there. Now, let me indicate some of the mitigation actions our country has taken and their main effects. Of course, the central government, India is a federal structure where we have a central government and state governments. We have been able to map about 186 actions at central level, and about 200 odd actions, total about 420 plus actions at state levels. So this is a huge spectrum of climate-related actions, direct and indirect, which are happening. We'll try to map some of them here. Our renewable target is 175,000 megawatt. Presently, we are around 50,000 plus already. We have created a system of renewable energy certificates and renewable purchase obligations. These obligations are that the percentage of renewable energy which has to be part of total electricity which is being supplied. It depends on each state, but I think the highest one is 11% and the lowest is 3 or 4%. States don't have an electricity, renewable capacity, they have to buy it from other states. So very healthy market mechanism exists on trading of renewable energy certificate. We have this Clean Environment Fund, and Clean Environment cess is about $6 per ton of coal which is produced or imported. It's on all coal which is being used. On energy efficiency, so we understand and we have taken consciously actions on all the fronts. First is renewable energy, we should enhance. Then enhancing energy efficiency and also creating market mechanisms which promote efficient use of energy and reduces the GHG emissions. So on energy efficiency, we have very, very important scheme which is called Perform, Achieve, Trade scheme. In BUR1, we have indicated the PAT scheme first phase. Now, first phase has been completed, 2012-2015. We are into second phase now. And this first phase, 8 energy-intensive sectors have been included. Now, in second phase, we are including 3 more sectors. So this is a expanding process. In the first phase, about 478 plants were included. In the second phase, we are planning about 770 odd plants to be included. So it's expanding. In the first phase, initial results are out. About 5,635 megawatt energy demand has been avoided, and 31 million tons CO2 have been mitigated. We also have star-rated appliances, super efficient programs covering air conditioners, covering so many type of appliances used in households. We are promoting supercritical technology. Already about 40 gigawatt of coal capacities on supercritical now. So we are not putting any subcritical. We are just going for supercritical and ultra supercritical technology. On building and transport, we are creating dedicated freight corridor from Delhi to Bombay and Delhi to Calcutta, which is carrying about 30% of main traffic, freight traffic. We are creating metro rail in 15 cities. We are having energy conservation building code, which is for efficient buildings. Every building consuming more than 100 kVA per year has to adopt to this code. LED lighting, we already changed 234 million incandescent lamps to LEDs, and we have mitigated 246 million tons CO2 in the process. We have a website. If anybody wants to see, you can have the look to website. It's updated dynamically. We have initiated national mission on electric mobility. It's in nascent stage, but we expect to build upon this, and maybe along with our solar mission and development in storage technology, maybe we'll take it extremely forward. We have national initiative on climate resilient agriculture, mission on micro irrigation, because water is also a very critical aspect India believes, and we are working on also solar water pumps. On forestry, Green India mission and afforestation program, these are very important initiatives. On important INDCs, as we have said, 33 to 35% reduction on GHG upon GDP during 2005-2030 is our target, and 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from non-fossil fuel base by 2030. We are on track, and UNEP report in 2015 has already also acknowledged India for this. We have already reduced 12% energy emission intensity between 2005-2010. Domestic MRV, we have don't have any GHG MRV as of now, but we have different MRVs. Like for PAT scheme, we have a strong MRV to track the specific energy consumption. We are working to create appropriate institutional mechanism. Capacity building is required for creating MRV systems. For emissions, we are working on all the three things: methodology, activity data, emission factors enhancement. So we propose to move to higher tiers as appropriate. And emission reduction quantification for all mitigation actions, it requires a lot of capacity building. We are conscious of it. On supports needed, of course, we have received $9 million for our BUR and TNC, so 2 BUR and TNC preparation. India is putting about 2% of our GDP on adaptation. 90 billion is required for solar capacity targets. Our International Solar Alliance is also attracting a lot of visibility there, and we are strengthening these. $21 billion required for grid infrastructure for renewable power. So these things are required, and we are working towards these. So of course, ICA process has been helpful. It has really maybe asked us to go into enhanced reporting of actions from various government departments. We have been collecting this data. As I said, 420 odd actions have been mapped. And we are also identifying new institutions that can be brought in, and awareness level has to be increased, which has already increased through this process, because at state level also we have approached them, and of course central various ministries we have been approaching. The Secretariat has been cooperative, facilitative, and supportive during the process of technical analysis, and it has also helped us collate and consolidate capacity building needs. I think these are responses. We have received 13 questions plus one more has come after the period expired and responded to all of these questions in writing. And if we have the details, if you want to see, we can see, but I think we close the presentation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we've heard from India. Now it's time for you to ask questions. Who's going to ask the question? I see European Union, then China and Japan. The EU, you've got the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much to India for a very comprehensive presentation on their domestic policies, priorities, and also the information that's included in the first biennial update report. We thank actually India for providing very comprehensive answers during the written stage of the facilitative sharing of views. We have very much information that's already been provided, so thank you very much. We hope that this information can be shared with all parties because it's really an interesting process. We would maybe like to follow up with two questions. One directly related to the information that you have presented this morning. And maybe you can explain a bit more on how the instrument of renewable purchase obligations works, to whom the obligation actually apply, and how this obligation could be met, and maybe a few information on how the obligations work together with the renewable energy certificates. I think it's been brought in the presentation, but maybe you can give a bit more insight. And our second question is related to your ongoing work and priorities, and maybe you can provide more information on what are India's highest priorities in relation to the improvements on the greenhouse gas inventory. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. China, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, dear colleagues. Thanks for the presentation by India. It's very comprehensive and detailed, and I think it's very impressive about the solar initiatives. It set a good example to the world and also set a good example for the developing country parties. And our question is about the solar initiatives. Could you please share some challenges and barriers that you've made during the implement of the solar initiatives at the national level? Because I think for a lot of developing country parties may face the same barriers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Japan, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. And first of all, I really appreciate India for your very informative presentation. It was quite comprehensive. And Japan has one question about your national inventory system. According to the BUR, India initiated the National Inventory Management System, which was shown in the presentation, to establish the long-term institutional structure for preparing GHG inventory in periodic and continuous manner. Could you provide further detail about this National Inventory Management System? In particular, if you have any lesson learned or challenges to establish this system, could you share with us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. India, please answer these questions.
Thank you for very interesting questions. So I'll start from the question from European Union. RPOs are renewable purchase obligations. These are mandated by each state for all the power consumed and sold in the state. So this is power consumed also, this power consumed also includes the power from private producers. So this is something which is every state, as I said, maybe up to 11%. If a state like Rajasthan, in western side, a lot of solar, so they have mandated a higher because they can do it. Otherwise, there is a market on renewable energy certificates. So we are trying to maybe separate carrier and content like things. So energy will be separated and renewable will be given a separate certificate. So energy can be sold as energy, whatever is the price for energy. And REC will rest with the producer of the energy. So there's a market, there is a demand to meet the RPOs, and the REC create a market, provide a market supply for meeting those RPOs. So if the demand is more than supply, the price will go very high. If the demand is lower than supply, the price will not go that high. And also the government of India has fixed a floor price and a ceiling price for solar and all other renewables. These are two separate prices which have been given. And we are very strongly moving towards implementing the RPOs, whatever has been decided by the states, and this is likely to increase the REC. Presently, it's a buyer's market, but maybe slowly it will balance and maybe become a seller's market. Thank you. Sorry, it's a buyer's market. Yes, I was correct. So on the second question on priorities and how do we want to change our on GHG inventories, we have adopted 2006 guidelines. So there are still gaps which we need to maybe build capacity of our experts to check up on all subsectors. We are also conscious that we have data gaps in some areas. We are also conscious that we need to estimate or measure new emission factors for some subcategories that are key sources. We have a plan for this, and I think I may link the question from our Japanese colleagues on National Inventory Management System. If the chair allows, I could answer the question also here. We have about 121 institutions working on different aspects of climate change. These are national institutions, also private entities, also scientific laboratories. They're all working on these. Some are working on GHG emissions, different sectors, some are working on mitigation. So these institutions are already, we have this network with us. So we have to maybe more formalize the whole process where every year emission factors, that is every 2 years emission factor estimation through a key source analysis, they are prioritized. We start conducting some new measurement, we start improving some activity data, and we improve on 2006 guideline adoption by sector, one by one. So this is a continuous process, which also includes quality assurance, quality control, internal checks through various ministries and departments of Government of India. So it's a big process. We are a large country and we are conscious of the whole process, and we are taking due care to establish this process in future.
Thank you. Regarding the China's question about how to expand the solar challenges in the expansion of the solar, I'd like to share with the information that when we started with the solar mission in 2010, the solar capacity in India was just 3.5 megawatt. And the targets for the mission was reaching 20,000 megawatt by 2022. Since the beginning, the challenge was that the cost of the solar, and it was around 28 cents at that point of time. We started with the auctioning process, and in the first phase itself, the price came down to say 60%, and then different instruments were brought in. Like we went for the kind of solar parks, development of solar parks, in which the infrastructure like internal roads and transmission was provided, and the solar developer has to just come and plug and play kind of things. The recent auction that happened just few days ago, the prices has come down to just less than 4 cents. So looking up to the cost coming down in the solar, the government has taken a decision to enhance the solar park capacity. Earlier, it was proposed to go for 20,000 megawatts solar parks. Now we are going to double the capacity of solar parks. Another challenge in the solar is it's a daytime generation available, and also there is some intermittencies also there. To address this, what we are going to do is to managing our loads that can be bring in the daytime only, like agriculture and other things. Also on the point of intermittency, we are bringing out forecasting and scheduling regulations so that we can address such kind of challenges. Thank you.
I think, Chair, with your permission, we have answered the Japanese question, National Inventory Management System, along with the European Union. Are they satisfied, or you want to explain?
Well, in the interest of the remaining 7 countries that want to ask the questions, I would rather leave it for your bilateral conversation, okay? If I may suggest this. Colleagues, I now invite Sweden, then Czech Republic to ask your questions. Sweden, please.
Thank you. And thank you, India, for the very interesting presentation. And like our colleague from China, I'm also interested in this very impressive National Solar Mission project that you just gave some more information on. And I wonder if you have any additional policy instruments that you are planning for the expansion of this project. And also, if I might have missed it during your presentation, but did you also estimate the emission reduction achieved already from this solar project? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Czech Republic.
Thank you. And we thank also India for their very comprehensive presentation. We would like to ask for the questions considering your capacity building needs, which are identified in the technical analysis of the report of your first BUR, if they are mirroring your own priorities, and further, if you had already identified priority needs that could be addressed in a short term, meaning that they can be implemented in time for the submission of your next BUR. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I now invite Brazil.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, distinguished delegates. The Brazilian delegation would like to congratulate India for the presentation, and as well as for the first BUR. It's very comprehensive. India stated during this presentation that 29.5% of population lives below poverty line. But at the same time, India is promoting very ambitious plans on housing for all and power for all. I think India is showing that is on track to reduce emissions, and at the same time being conducted by the overheading priorities of developing countries, which is promote sustainable development and eradicate poverty. Saying that, we are very impressive regarding the promotion of cleaner sources of energy, including renewables, including the investment on supercritical technologies regarding coal. And I think India provided very important information on enhancing energy efficiency also. I know that part is referred to the solar policies on India, but I would like to, again, to consider the solar policies. It's quite impressive having 18% of increasing in capacity in solar in the last year. It's very, very impressive. The Brazilian delegation would like to know how India has been able to promote those very impressive advances in such short time of period, and what is the role of the government and the private sector on designing and implementing those very huge, ambitious policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will close this round with Switzerland, please.
Thank you, and thank you to India for its comprehensive presentation, as well as for the very informative answer that was provided to us on our question posed in the cycle of written questions. Our question relates to the use of the IPCC guidelines that have already been mentioned before. India has used a combination of the revised 1996 IPCC guidelines and the 2006 IPCC guidelines. What is India's experience with using different sets of guidelines in parallel? In India's view, does the presence of different sets of guidelines add to the flexibility needed in the inventory preparation process, or is this rather seen as a burden? Thank you.
Thank you very much. India, please take these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding the question raised by Sweden on the solar mission, also some part of the question Brazil has raised. As I said, that when we started with the solar mission in 2010, we have just 3.5 megawatt, and we have taken a various policy measures. We started with providing some kind of capital subsidy, particularly for the off-grid applications, for solar home lighting systems, lanterns, also the concentrated solar technologies for the thermal applications. And thereafter, when the prices came down, initial targets were just to reach 20,000 megawatt in 2022. In 2014, considering the fact that the prices are coming down and we need to have a serious concern over the climate change, the government has taken a decision to enhance the target from 20,000 to 100,000 megawatt in 2022. To achieve this, various different instruments were used. One is the solar park, where we have given certain kind of subsidy for creating the internal infrastructures like road, like evacuation, and also we gone for the auction process. It's a reverse kind of bidding process in which the bidders has to take a reverse, calculate their reverse, and bidding is reverse process. They have to reduce their, one is the benchmark tariff is there fixed, and then they have to reduce their tariff while the auction process. Also, out of this 100,000 megawatt, we have kept 40,000 megawatt for the solar rooftop, 20,000 for the solar parks, and balance 40,000 for the different small solar plants. And considering the fact that the solar park concept was very much taken by the bidders, the capacity was doubled. And for solar rooftop, we have gone for the net metering policies, in which the power the surplus power you can feed into the grid, and you can get a tariff, or you can get it to the adjustment in the bills. So that net metering policies there in all over the country, all the states have such kind of policies. Also, we have taken a step on the evacuation and transmission infrastructure side. We are creating a green energy corridor to evacuate power from the solar plants, also from the wind, so total for renewables. One major policy change was done in last year, where the interstate transmission was made free. It means if you are supplying power from one state to other state, like a solar park situated in one state and other state is buying power, then it need not to pay any transmission charges and losses. So that was another major policy initiative taken. On the off-grid side, we are also providing for solar rooftops around 30% of capital subsidy for the domestic and also for the institutional areas, not for the commercial and private. Solar pumps is another major area where we are working. We have sanctioned more than 100,000 solar pumps last year. And more than that, we are going to have another 1,000 solar pumps in the next few years. So that is another policy change. we are planning to have such kind of methods in which the solar pumps, he can use the solar pump for the daytime and maybe use for 2-3 hours, and for balance time he can feed power into the grid and get money. So such kind of policies are certainly encouraging the farmers to go for the solar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to add to my colleague, India, our average greenhouse gas emissions are 1 kg per kilowatt hour. So you can estimate if you want to see how much power has been produced. And our solar operates for around 1800 hours per year, roughly. So you can estimate that. And as per the next BUR, our colleagues from Czech Republic have indicated what are the priorities. So during our TA process, we have identified 25 capacity building needs, very detailed, which are available in the report, and also 16 other which may be more broad. So I think we don't have any prioritization done because we believe everything is important if you really want to take it to the next level. Thank you.
Regarding the question from distinguished delegate and colleague from Switzerland regarding the use of IPCC guidelines and so on, I would like to submit that India has strived to incorporate all elements of a good GHG inventory in our BUR report, namely completeness, consistency, accuracy, and comparability. We have followed the 1996 and 2006 guidelines to the extent possible and as per our extent capabilities. Our researchers are constantly improving the country-specific emission factors for key sources, and we are in the process of updating the activity data at finer level. There are data and information gaps in some sectors, and we are making efforts to address them in our future reports in a gradual manner. But, Mr. Chairman, through you, let me say and reassure that we are committed to enhance accuracy of our GHG inventory estimations by riding the tier ladder for key categories. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Chair, just to add to some of the comments which have been made by our colleagues on the Brazilian question on sustainable development, challenges of poverty alleviation, and energy access to all, housing to all, and how do we see these working with our GHG policies. We have been very conscious of these facts, and the Prime Minister feels that climate change is an opportunity. So we don't see it as a threat, we see it as an opportunity, and we are trying to embed all our climate change goals, our sustainable development goals in the development process itself. So when we have targets for housing for all, the housing infrastructure that is generated, we have planned for 100 smart cities where all the important climate related infrastructures are going to be in place. When we are looking for housing for poor, again there, the infrastructure that is being designed is climate resilient. So these challenges in terms of developmental goals and our climate goals, we are trying to work cohesively within the process with all our institutions, ministries, departments, private sectors to ensure that we are able to meet all our goals in terms of the development challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And final 3 countries asking questions, starting from New Zealand, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. India, congratulations on publishing your first biennial update report, and also thank you for the written answers you provided to our questions, and thanks for the presentation just then. We note that India has a number of targets in place in several sectors of its economy, for example, an emissions intensity per unit of GDP target, renewable energy targets, etc. And we also heard that India was largely on track to meet these targets. Could India please provide a bit more information on the key institutional arrangements that enables them to measure the progress it is making in meeting these targets? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Republic of Korea, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for India giving a comprehensive and informative presentation. I have a couple of questions. First one is, how does federal government cooperate with the local government to reduce GHG emissions? Second one is going to be, India has implemented the Bharat state norms for new vehicles to reduce GHG emissions, except for vehicles with the 2 and 3 wheelers. Are there any reason why India did not apply the Bharat state norms to vehicles with the 2 and 3 wheelers? Does India has mitigation policy and measures for vehicles with the 2 and 3 wheelers? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Germany.
Thank you, and thank you also to India for the presentation and for addressing some of the previous questions that addressed some of the questions that we had already. But I would like to follow up on one point on the MRV arrangements and the relatively large number of institutions that have been involved in preparing the BUR. Apparently there were like 17 expert institutions involved through a facilitative agency. So we will be interested whether you could share some of the experiences that you have made in working with such a large number of institutions to prepare the BUR, especially whether you have identified some key challenges and what is your experience or what kind of good practices you might have implemented that helped you to manage this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you for very interesting comments and further clarification sought. So maybe for New Zealand, the key institutional element for MRV, as we indicated, we have MRV for perform, achieve, trade, for that is specific energy consumption. We have MRV, let us say, for transport sector, which is again end of the pipe emissions coming, which is not greenhouse gas emission. We have MRV on how much solar has been put in place. We also have MRV on 23 sectoral industries. They have to report in their annual report how much energy they have consumed. But we don't have the MRV for greenhouse gas emissions. We are working on it. I think hopefully we'll create it. And also for forest, we have a huge inventory. We are also supported by our satellite systems, ISRO, to map the inventory, the various land use patterns and the type of forests we have. We have all these systems. I think we have to just put everything together and create a greenhouse gas MRV system. So we are working towards that. On the question by Germany on the experience in working with so many institutions, yes, it's a big challenge. But as a democracy which wants to understand and maybe increase the capacity of at grassroots level, we have taken a conscious decision to involve so many institutions. And of course, we operate through a lead and secondary institution level, that in every sector we create a lead institution, and then there are 4 or 5 institutions which are supporting in different aspects. We have various meetings planned every sectorally on a regular basis. We have different workshops planned. And we also encourage scientific publications from the institutions involved. And it's a very, very intricate process where the ministries and departments are also involved. The government of India, they come and also provide inputs and also coordinate these sectoral processes. It's a very, very, as you rightly said, very interesting and integrated process which we have established over the years. And as far as the question from Korea, I think you will answer the first part. Yeah.
This is regarding the involvement of the local governments. Now, the government system in India is federal, and we have the central government, the state governments, and the local governments in place. All of them are elected. And we have municipalities and town committees in the urban areas and panchayats in the rural areas, 3-tier structures. And they are all partners in our development process. While we have very clearly earmarked responsibilities for different tiers of government, the fund flow is largely from the federal level to the state level and from the state level to the local government level. So they don't have a lot of local resources in terms of money generated at the local level to finance their programs. And therefore, it also gives us an opportunity to put in place policies which the local government, the state governments follow in consonance with what the national priorities are. So we have mandated that all states have a state action plan on climate change. And 95% of the states, as of now, have their own action plan on climate change, apart from the national action plan on climate change that we have. And they are largely focused on state-specific priorities, complementing what we have in the National Action Plan on Climate Change. And while many of these programs which are designed at the federal level, like energy programs, solar energy, renewable programs, etc., the delivery is at the local level. So the actual implementation happens at the level of municipalities, town committees, or panchayats. And therefore, there is a very clear coherence in what we plan at the national level, what the local level plans, and we bring them together. One of the recent innovations that we have brought is the federally mandated grants that are from the Finance Commission, which is constituted every 5 years. We have 7.5% of that allocation going on the basis of forest cover. So those states which are doing better in forestry and afforestation programs, they get an incentive to have higher resource allocation. And this translates into fund flows to the local level also. So this is a very cooperative mechanism that we have in place. And increasingly, we are finding that our states and local governments are becoming partners in our climate and sustainable development programs. And there's a lot of understanding and appreciation of concerns and priorities at all levels. The question regarding the vehicles, I think Professor Garg will be answering.
Regarding two-wheelers and three-wheelers covered in Bharat Stage 6 norms, they are covered. A very simple answer, they are covered. We are providing CO, HC, NHSC, NOx and PM levels mandated for all two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And of course, we also changed from two-stroke engine to four-stroke engine in our two-wheelers and three-wheelers about 10 years back. So that is already moving now. No more two-wheeler engines are being manufactured, only four-stroke. So precisely these two are covered in our Bharat Stage 6 norms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, I allowed a little bit more time for this discussion because I thought that firstly, 18% of global population deserves a little bit more time. And secondly, that was really fascinating presentation. I really want to join those who commended you. It was really very good to see how the scale of policy implementation helps to take prices down, and also how the financial non-punitive incentives encourage people to action and use positive signals rather than negative. So I please also accept my congratulations, and we are now moving to another big country, Indonesia. Indonesia, you've got the floor and you will get your remote device. Oh, you got it. Good. You got the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Good morning, colleagues. It is my pleasure to share with you our experience in preparation the first BUR. This is the outline as asked by the Secretariat. So the part one is for the summary of the BUR and recent development. The second one is on the experience and lesson learned in participating in the ICA process, and the third one is response to the question received. On the national context, this is Indonesia. For those who are not aware where we are it is we are located in the middle of Asia continent and Australia, and also in between of Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. So this is a very big countries with around 13,000 islands. So that's why we are really very vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So in this case also, based on this geological and climatological, we are really have a deep concern how we also not only to protect our environment, but also how we can also contribute to the effort of global level in reducing GHG emission. So this is the geographical area, and also Indonesia at the time of reporting of this BUR, the population is around 238 million, and it is projected will be exceed more than 300 million in 2030. On the arrangement of this BUR, this chart show you that this works is directly coordinated by Ministry of Environment and Forestry, as we have here the National Steering Committee chaired by also the National Focal Point of Climate Change in Indonesia. And under this committee, there are working groups, 4 working groups, one on the national circumstances and one on the national GHG inventory, the third one on the mitigation action and effect, and then the last one on the barriers and support received. All working groups consist all related ministries and also institution and experts and also other relevant stakeholders. They are really involved in this process. This is the sectoral condition. For example, here for energy, we are really depend on the fossil fuel for meeting our energy demand. Mostly, we can see here the coal supplies increase around 11.5%, and also for oil 2.8%, and also natural gas for 3.9%. That's for the growth during the period of 2000 up to 2012. For the industry, this is a very important contributors in our GDP, account for around 40 to 46%, and the subsector that's very important in this industry is mining and manufacture. And for the forestry, this the total area of forest is around forest land is around 128.4 million, and for agriculture, as to support the food security, there are some activities in agriculture that increase the activity on plantation, and also for raised harvested area and production and livestock, and also the allocation for the cropland. For the water, we have some scarcity in some areas of Indonesia due to very huge demand on the use of water. And on the marine and coastal, up to now, we are facing very challenging issue with the increasing damage on our coral reef and also mangrove forests. On the GHG inventory in the year 2012, we can see here that in total, including LULUCF, our GHG emission account for 1.4 gigaton CO2 equivalent in year 2012. But if we thought LULUCF account for 758 gigatons carbon dioxide equivalent. These two charts here give us the information where this in the first chart here the inventory included the LULUCF, and the other one here if without LULUCF, where energy account as the main contributor with around 66.9%. On the emission trend, we also have two graphs that show the difference between with LULUCF and then without LULUCF. This graph show on the first graph is without LULUCF. That's from energy, agriculture, waste, and that increase at the annual rates around 4.6 for 1.3% and 4% respectively. So without LULUCF, the annual emission in the period of year 2000 to 2012 increased around 3.6% per year. But if we consider the LULUCF, the emission fluctuated. It depends on the high interannual variability of the emission from LULUCF sector. On the mitigation action and effect, since 2011, the government has promulgated Presidential Regulation number 61 on the National Action Plan on GHG emission reduction. This is our voluntary commitment to reduce GHG emission for 26% by 2020, with additional 15% with international support. So this is the description for 26%. So all these 26% distributed into all related ministries' activities. For example, here the highest contribution come from the forestry sector, forestry and peatland, and then the second one for energy and transport, and then agriculture, waste, industry, and for the total, our national contribution is account for 0.7 gigaton carbon dioxide equivalent. So all these activities included into our national development plan. So it is not a new activity, but this is strengthen our national development plan, and this is also included in all activities in related ministry. On the CDM, we have project total 242, and then registered at UNFCCC for 146. And under validation process, 16, and the CER for 13.5 million. On the NAMAS, we have registered 2 NAMAS, one on sustainable urban transport in Indonesia and smart street lighting initiative. These 2 NAMAS have been registered in UNFCCC. However, only the first NAMAS that had already committed the support from NAMAS facility, which is National Urban Transport in Indonesia. So the result achieved, we have established this presidential regulation in year 2011, but the BUR report only up to year 2012. So that's why this is in this BUR we only reported very limited achievement of this mitigation action. What we could report it on that BUR mostly on the potential achievement of each mitigation action. So in this from this table, we put here activities under the presidential regulation, and we put here NAMA, and then non-presidential regulation, non-activities under the presidential regulation. For presidential regulation, there are some activities that have the target here, totally 45, but by the time we reported the BUR, there were only 23 activities implemented with the total achievement only 40.29 million ton carbon dioxide equivalent. And then this is the emission reduction that has been reduced. For NAMA, of course, as these two NAMAs have not yet implemented at the time, there were no achievement that could be reported in the BUR. On the domestic MRV, we have mandate under the Presidential Regulation number 61 on the GHG emission reduction, and also Presidential Regulation number 71 on the National GHG inventory. And we have our regulation on national MRV under Ministry of Environment Regulation number 15 year 2013 on MRV. This regulation has a coverage on national and subnational action, and the scope here, here that covers on not only on the baseline activity, but also on the management of each mitigation action. We have not really have at this moment we have not really complete MRV system, but we have started with our pilot MRV. For example, here we saw with an example of pilot MRV on the action of mandatory to implement energy management in large energy consumers. By the time we reported the BUR, this pilot has not yet completed, and then we couldn't report any MRV mitigation action. This is the structure of MRV in Indonesia. This is it has been changed as we have a new cabinet and new structure of the government. And in the maybe this year we will have a new regulation related to MRV, which is consistent with our new structure of the government and also our current development of national registry system. On the obstacles and barriers that we have been facing during the preparation of the BUR, of course, on the barriers, we have barriers on the capacity to prepare for GHG inventory. When we prepare our SNC, we, the government, mostly depend on the expertise of experts, and then when we had to prepare this BUR, we started our national capacity. We developed units responsible for GHG inventory in each sector, and also a unit for responsible for the mitigation action in all related ministries. So the capacity of the officers who deal with this inventory and also mitigation still lack of knowledge and also know how to could really report the appropriate inventories, for example. So the capacity is also one issue for us in preparing this BUR. And also capacity to measure and to monitor mitigation action. For example, as I showed you previously, that's only limited the achievement of the mitigation action. From the total target of 45 action, we could only report it 23rd. This is also due to that the capacity of officers in the ministries to really measure and also report, and also measure, report, and then also verify this mitigation action is very limited. And again, we have also difficulties in analyzing the support that we have received. I will talk later on. On the challenges, of course, when we finish this BUR and then now in the process of finalizing our third national communication, we will in the future have to prepare our next the second BUR. How then we the process that we have been developing so far could then continue with of course with our resources. For the preparation of the second BUR. This is one challenge, one important challenge that we have faced, and then we have to anticipate in the near future. And also how to maintain and the preparation of GHG inventory. We have our annual inventory, national inventory that we nationally reported to the public. But again, still, as the government officer always change in its structure, in also there's some rotation in those people who are responsible for these activities. So we really have a challenge of how the system could be then sustained to can continue this the BUR. And one other important thing is on the MRV. For us, it is still a very challenging issue how our mitigation action could then be verified. Oh, sorry. On the support received and needed, we have here identification based on the NAMA's proposal. This is the only data we have when we prepare this our BUR. We could come to this number of the total investment, and then this is the number that we at that time believe that this is the number that we really need for support. For this chart, we showed how much budget provided for adaptation and also mitigation, and also how much the support activities we receive. So we can see here the blue one is for adaptation, and the red one is for mitigation. And from this chart, we see only a very small number of international support for implementation of mitigation action. In Indonesia, any support which is not registered in our national budget would not be acknowledged as a support. So that's why if for example, contributor countries give the support directly, for example, to local governments or to NGO without any endorsement from the national government, for example, under the Ministry of Finance. So we cannot register it in our system, and we cannot acknowledge it as a support. So that's why the amount of the support here is very limited. This is again to give you a picture how much the national budget has been allocated for our national GHG emission reduction under the presidential regulation for achieving the 26% voluntary commitment. On the our experience for this ICA process, we believe that the process could give a benefit for us, for the team who prepare the GHG inventory and also the mitigation action, as the ICA could give us feedback. For example, how we could revise our calculation and also increase our capacity in preparation the next BUR. And also the assessment also could give us a better understanding of the use of the IPCC guideline 2006. On the enhance domestic coordination. Of course, since the beginning of the process of the preparation of BUR, we started our coordination, and this coordination has been increasing by the time we preparing the BUR, and then continue with now our TNC. all the working groups are still working under the coordination of Ministry of Environment and Forestry. How to increase the transparency of reporting and areas of improvement. Again, the feedback from the ICA was very beneficial for us, as we could then review and evaluate the process of the preparation of BUR, and also the capacity of our national inventory and also our mitigation action that can be in the future follow it up with the more revised mechanism, and also revised coordination processes. TTE also has identified many technical elements that we also acknowledge still quite challenging for us here. For example, the disaggregation emission of the ACM, how then also we could report the emission for international aviation and also marine bunker, and also reporting of the indirect GAG and also SOX. ICA process also has identified areas that need for capacity building. I just here name a few. There are a lot of there are some other areas for capacity building under this TTE. So, for example, here data collection for SF6, estimation emission estimation for bunker fuel, MRV mitigation, and also track of support received. On the question, we have received 10 questions from 4 countries, from United States, New Zealand, Switzerland, and EU. On the question number 1 related with the IPCC guideline 2006, yes, Indonesia, since the second national communication, we use IPCC guideline 2006, because at the time we all the relevant stakeholders in Indonesia so that this guideline covers more sources than the revised IPCC guideline to 1996, and also contain more update emission factor and parametric that improve confidence in the quality of estimates. Of course, by using this IPCC guideline 2006, we still have challenges that we have to overcome in the near future. For example, how we can develop our improve emission factor, for example, to have our local emission factor. And we also still have challenges issue on the data collection. On the inventory, yes, in written in the system, we have also responding to this question. We have revised the summary table as suggested by the ICA. We have revised it from the use of summary table from IPCC guideline to year 2006. And this is for mitigation. This question came from EU and also Switzerland with regard to the institutional arrangement. Under this presidential regulation, there are a coordinator under Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and then the National Planning Agency. These two institutions coordinate all related ministries to implement mitigation action. And also, yeah, the last one on the BUR guideline. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rahmawati. Distinguished colleagues, we've heard from Indonesia. Now it's your time to ask questions. I got Republic of Korea, Czech Republic, European Union, India, Japan, Germany, Brazil, and Australia. Okay, Republic of Korea.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for nice presentation. I have a couple of questions. First one is, Indonesia demonstrate the highest emission from peat fire. I think the peat fire may be considered as a natural process. And is there any way to prevent or reduce the peat fire? The first one. Second one is, since 2009, the GH emission from energy sector has increased very rapidly. Are there any specific reason for the sharp increase? If you're allowed, I have another question. Does Indonesia have a renewable energy policy? This is my last one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The EU.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, we'd like to thank Indonesia for very comprehensive answers to our questions. It was really helpful, and also the presentation today was really helpful to understand the country's situation and policy. So really congratulations for all the work that you have done to prepare for the session. We would maybe want to follow up regarding the prioritization of work, and maybe you can explain more what are your highest priorities in terms of future improvements for the greenhouse gas inventories. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Czech Republic.
Thank you, and we would like to thank Indonesia for a really detailed and comprehensive presentation. We actually have similar question to the one we had to our colleagues from India, considering your capacity building needs, which are identified in your technical analysis report of your first PUR, if they are mirroring your own priorities, and if you had identified the priority needs that could be addressed in the short term, meaning that they can be implemented in your next submission of BUR. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we have altogether 8 countries, so I'll divide it 4 and 4. So India, please ask your question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you and congratulations to distinguished delegate from Indonesia. Would you please tell us a bit more on the inter-annual variability in the LULUCF emissions? As you would notice, in our case, in India's case, 12% of all our emissions are neutralized by the forestry sector. And the rate of deforestation per unit population in India is one of the lowest compared to number of developed and developing countries. So we were wanting to specifically know about the inter-annual variability in the LULUCF sector in Indonesia. And you have also in your BUR estimated the cost of technical support in the FLAW sector. So have you measured in the forestry sector alone? Thank you.
Okay, Indonesia, please answer this set of questions.
Thank you. Thank you for all questions. I would like to respond to South Korea, Republic of South Korea, on the pit fires. Of course, we have government policies, also actions to prevent the forest fires. For example, we have a policy on the moratorium to release permit for activities in the peatland area. And we have also government regulation on peatland. Excuse me. We have also activities that involves communities, because in many cases forest fires also caused by communities that lives nearby the forest. So we develop social forestry, and then we also develop the mechanism that could involve the people who live around the forest in the activities to prevent the forest fire. On the prioritization of the work here under the question from the Czech Republic for the capacity building. Of course, we in the near future we would like to increase capacity building on the GHG inventory, and also for the measuring of the achievement of mitigation action. We would then involve experts and also universities in increasing the capacity of related units in the ministry will deal with this inventory and also mitigation action. On the energy policy raised by distinguished delegates from Republic of South Korea, yeah, we have a national energy policy, and then we also have a national master plan of energy, which also include in this policy the policy on renewable energy. Our target is in the energy mix is 23% of renewable energy in year 2025. On the inventory, my colleague would add the response.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think I want to answer a question relating greenhouse gas inventory, especially for priority our greenhouse gas inventory. Based on IPCC guideline, I think we identify the priorities for greenhouse gas inventory. There are two indicators. There are key category analysis and also in uncertainty. The priority, I think, how to eliminate uncertainty for key category. In our updated report, I think the key category, they are in peatland emission and also next to energy. This is our priority to related greenhouse gas inventory, and also to capture interoperability regarding LULUCF emission. I think the challenge, I think, very large Indonesia. I think we have many islands, and for solution the situation, we develop greenhouse gas inventory. We compare island by island. We have national forest inventory for each island. There are different number from Sumatra and Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Java, and other islands. Also, we develop one map policy to capture variability inter-island in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Then Japan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for Indonesia and for your comprehensive and informative presentation. I have a question on Presidential Regulation 71. According to the Indonesia's first BUR, Indonesia has issued Presidential Regulation 71/2011 to prepare greenhouse gas inventories in a continuous manner. So my question is, what built the momentum to establish this presidential regulation? And also, if you had any challenges to establish this regulation, could you share with us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brazil, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I wish to thank the distinguished representative of Indonesia for the straightforward approach of its presentation, the focus on key areas such as support needed and received in a very clear manner. So thank you very much and congratulations on that. We have two questions, one on CDM. You mentioned in your presentation CDM, so wish to know what's the role of CDM in obtaining mitigation targets. And also in your presentation, you mentioned domestic MRV as a challenge. So wish to know what are the needs of Indonesia in implementing domestic MRV. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Australia.
Thank you, Indonesia, for that very interesting presentation. We just wanted to ask about your 2020 target of reducing emissions by 26% below a BAU level, and we wanted to know if you expect that your existing mitigation actions and policies will be sufficient to reach this target, or whether you plan to implement new policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got 2 countries left, China and Germany, so please answer these 3 sets of questions and we'll conclude with China and Germany. So, Indonesia, you've got the floor. Colleagues, please.
Thank you for Japan question. I think since 2011, we launched a presidential regulation for greenhouse gas inventory. This is for anticipated our policy to reduction emission 2006% in 2020. Also, this is momentum for our country to develop. To increase data greenhouse gas inventory for all sectors. As you know, in our country, we develop two approaches for greenhouse gas inventory. They are bottom-up approach for 30 for each province, and also in national approach with sector. This is our challenge for our country to combine bottom-up approach with top-down approach. This is our reason to launch greenhouse gas inventory for momentum to aggregation data for national, also from provincial level. Thank you.
On the question from Brazil, yeah, we have learned a lot from the CDM project that have been approved by involving the private sector. But so far, this CDM project achievement has not yet any relation with our national voluntary commitment of 26%. So 26%. It is distributed only for government activities with our government budget. On the MRV, domestic MRV, since the promulgation of the Ministerial Regulation number 15/2011, we have improved our mechanism on institutional aspect and also on technical aspect. In line with our development of national registry system. But so far, this improvement has not yet included in our current regulation that might be revised in the near future to have more implementable MRV regulation. With regard to the Australian colleagues, yes, we have our commitment on the 26% based on our knowledge. That's the best knowledge we had at the time we prepared this regulation. While we have been implementing it, and we face challenges, and we think that we are now in the process of revising this baseline in line with baseline of this presidential regulation, and then how this baseline continued with our baseline in our NDC. So in the maybe this year we will have new updates how on the policy aspect we could then improve the achievement in reduction of this GHG emission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have final 2, China.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations to Indonesia for the very comprehensive biennial updated report. Our question is about the institutional mechanism. Could you please share with us your best experience on the institutional arrangements which help to better preparation for the BUR? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Germany, please.
Thank you, and thank you to Indonesia for having addressed already some of the questions on the inventory. I have a follow-up question related to the greenhouse gas inventory, and that is that there is a plan to have a more active involvement of provinces and regions and in doing the greenhouse gas inventory. So our question would be, to what extent you have already been implemented to achieve this objective, and what are your experiences in this regard? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you've got the floor, please.
Thank you. I would like to respond the question from China on the institutional mechanism on the preparation of the BUR. We have 4 working groups. Working group 1 on the national circumstances, and the second one on national GHG inventory. The third one on the mitigation, and the fourth one is on the support. These working groups also supported by other institutional mechanism. For inventory, we have what we call it as a SIGN, National Inventory System. And then on mitigation, we also have our coordination mechanism with involve all related ministries and then coordinated by Ministry of Environment and Forestry together with National Development Planning Agency. So these 2 institutional arrangement then support the preparation of BUR with all related issues. For example, the national GHG inventory that reported in this BUR, it come from not only from this working group, but also come from the institutional arrangement for the national inventory system. So it involves data from all related ministries and then compiled by Ministry of Environment and Forestry as the coordinator for this national GHG inventory. For Germany.
Yeah, thank you for Chairman question. Why Germany? Why we conduct inventory from regional approach? Because each region in Indonesia, they are target to reduction of emission, not only in national level. Each province in Indonesia, they are target to reduction emission based on a national level. This is a reason for our country to develop greenhouse gas inventory, not only from national level, also from bottom up from province. For the situation, this is very challenging for our country. And since 2 years ago, we developed, like I mentioned, greenhouse gas national inventory by system online. We develop online system. Each province they are day-to-day updating data also from district level, and we monitor the data online system in our office in Ministry of Environment and Forestry. This is a solution for our country to capture all data, not only from national, also from regional with online system. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And also I'd like to congratulate both the report and the presentation here. Well, successfully completed the cycle. So thank you very much. And we are now moving to the presentation of Israel. And now I invite Ms. Shuli Nezer to give her brief presentation of the BUR. You got the floor.
Good morning, Chairman, colleagues. I'm pleased to be here and I thank you for the opportunity to present Israel's BUR. I'll begin with a few words about our unique national circumstances. Israel is a small and densely populated country characterized by a growing population and a growing economy. As you can see on the graph to the left, our average annual population growth between 2010 and 2016 was 1.9%, and our average annual GDP growth was 3.5%, both higher than the OECD average. In 2016, our population reached 8.6 million and GDP was about $300 billion. Nevertheless, despite these high population and economic growth rates, GHG emissions have remained relatively stable and emission intensity has steadily decreased. The graph on the right reflects our efforts to decouple economic growth from carbon emissions. Our GHG inventory for 2014 clearly demonstrated that energy generation continues to be the main contributor to GHG emissions. As you can see from the graph on the left, energy generation was responsible for approximately 51% of Israel's total emissions in 2014, followed by the transport sector, which accounts for 22% of the emissions. Therefore, we are focusing our mitigation effort on a gradual transition from coal-dominated power generation to natural gas and renewable sources. As you can see from the graph on the right, the share of coal in the fuel mix of our power sector has decreased considerably from 2010 to 2016, from 60% to approximately a third. As a result, last year in 2016, natural gas became Israel's primary fuel, accounting for 61% of the total fuel mix. The Ministry of Environmental Protection heads an interministerial multi-stakeholder committee on climate change. The committee includes representatives from government ministries, industry and commerce, local government, NGOs, and academic institutions. The committee assessed Israel's emissions reduction potential in 2030 and recommended a national emissions target and an implementation plan. As part of the process, specific working groups assessed and quantified the costs and benefits of around 100 abatement measures in all main sectors of the economy. Abatement scenarios were then developed and simulated until a final scenario was chosen. The government approved the mitigation targets in 2015 and the implementation plan in 2016. Israel set a national mitigation target for 2030 of 7.7 tons of CO2 equivalent per capita, as compared to around 10 in BAU scenario, which represent a reduction of 26% below 2005 per capita levels. An interim target of 8.8 tons CO2 equivalent per capita was also approved for 2025. Meeting our national target will bring total emissions to 81.7 million tons of CO2, down from 105.5 million tons under the BAU scenario. To reach the target, the government has also set 3 sector-specific targets. Reduction of electricity consumption by 17% relative to BAU levels by 2030, production of 30% of total electricity consumption from renewables in 2025, and 17% in 2030, and reduction of private mileage by 20% through a shift from private to public transportation. A national plan for implementation of the mitigation targets was approved by the government in April 2016. The plan tasks different government ministries with implementing a variety of steps, such as regulatory measures in the power sector, switching from coal to natural gas and renewable energy, promoting energy efficiency and green buildings, expanding the public transport network, and increasing vehicle efficiency. As you can see here, energy efficiency, fuel switch, and renewable energy accounts for 70% of the total GHG abatement potential. Just to illustrate our progress so far, here are a few examples. A decision taken by Electricity Public Utility Authority in 2015 to alter the merit order of power plants has shifted 17% of the electricity generated by coal to natural gas within a year. In addition, a historic decision was taken to shut down a third of Israel's coal generation capacity over the next 5 years. When it comes to renewable energy, progress has been slow, but major developments in recent months are expected to result in a rapid increase in renewable energy capacity. The most significant action was the initiation of market-based competitive tenders for renewable energy. The first bidding round for additional PV capacity was completed 2 months ago in March 2017 and resulted in significantly low prices, implying that renewable energy can now compete in Israel with conventional energy generation, even without considering the externalities. This puts Israel on track to meet its 10% renewable generation target by 2020. The government has also implemented a number of successful financial incentive programs for energy efficiency. For example, a budget of approximately $105 million was allocated for 2 grant programs, incentivize energy efficiency investments in local authorities with low socioeconomic ranking and small and medium-sized businesses. Adaptation goes side by side with mitigation, and our national adaptation plan will soon be presented to the government for approval. The adaptation plan was prepared by an interministerial committee with the full collaboration of all stakeholders in a variety of disciplines. It is largely based on no-regret scenarios, measures that should be implemented even if the effects of climate change prove to be less severe than predicted. In order to meet the challenges of mitigation and adaptation, innovative technological solutions in a wide range of fields are needed. Therefore, we are investing major efforts in encouraging and incentivizing the development of tomorrow's technologies. Israel is already recognized as a startup nation, and efforts are now directed toward turning it into a beta site for new environmental technologies. As you can see on the slide, more than 730 clean tech companies operated in Israel in 2015, most of them in areas related to climate change. We are integrating high-tech solutions into clean tech in order to come up with environmental solutions that will contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation, both nationally and globally. As shown here, a national MRV system is under preparation with the full collaboration of all relevant agencies, both governmental and non-governmental. As part of the process, we are formulating methodologies based on the highest international standards and adapted to conditions in Israel. The resulting framework will be comprehensive, rigorous, and transparent. Annual follow-ups will be conducted in accordance with relevant international guidelines and standards, and quality assurance procedures will be based on international criteria and UNFCCC guidelines. The framework allows for quantification of Israel's progress in implementing the National Mitigation Plan and enables reports to be prepared and submitted to the government and to the UNFCCC. Mr. Chairman, colleagues, in looking back at the ICA process, we can definitely say that it was beneficial for Israel in many respects. The process clarified the reporting guidelines and is expected to improve our future reporting. Furthermore, the ICA process served as a tool to highlight and better define Israel's capacity needs in different areas. These include enhancing institutional arrangements to enable increased transparency in data flow among the key stakeholders under the MRV system, enhancing Israel's capacity with regard to the preparation of the National Inventory Report, and in particular, conducting the uncertainty analysis. Developing a country-specific methodology for the estimation of the impacts of mitigations measures related to energy efficiency, and finally, closing the knowledge gaps regarding the available technological alternatives and policy measures that can be taken to reduce emissions, including gaps related to HFC's reduction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for very concise, brief presentation. I now open the floor for the questions. I see China, State of Palestine, New Zealand. China, you've got the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation by Israel. We have a question about how do you engage more stakeholders, especially the private sector, to make more contributions for bridging the technology gap? Thank you.
Thank you very much. State of Palestine.
Dear Chair of the SPI, thank you. Distinguished colleagues, I think it's still good morning, and thanks for the presentation from colleagues from Israel. Indeed, my question is guided by the modalities and guidelines for the international consultation and analysis, which clearly states that the objective of this analysis of the biennial update report under the subsidiary body of implementation is to be conducted in a manner that is non-intrusive, non-punitive, and respectful of national sovereignty, as you, Chair, clearly identified in this morning. Having said that, my question is directed to the distinguished colleagues from Israel. That's it. Is the Israeli BUR reports emissions from the areas that is defined in Chapter 1 of the National Circumstances, where the length and width of Israel is 470 kilometers and 135 kilometers respectively, page 9 in the report, and as shown in the map that's shown on page 22 of the report? If yes, this means that it covers areas under sovereignty of the State of Palestine, which contradicts the 2006 guidelines of IPCC by reporting on emissions from areas that is not under the control of Israel as by the international regime and bilateral agreements between Palestine and Israel. If no, this means that there is contradictory and misleading information contained. It gives me great pleasure this morning to remind you all that the State of Palestine is a state party to UNFCCC and to Paris Agreement as well, and it submitted its initial national communication report and national adaptation plan in November 2016, which clearly indicates our serious efforts to share with you all the collective efforts to respond to climate change challenges, while keeping in mind that our highest priorities are achievement of sustainable development goals, poverty eradication, and ensuring food security. On behalf of the State of Palestine, I kindly seize this opportunity to request that the information on the page 9 on Israel's coordinates and the map used takes into consideration and reflects the reality of the existence of the State of Palestine that has been recognized by the international community represented by UN General Assembly on 29th of November 2012, which includes occupied Palestinian territory that constitute of West Bank, including East Jerusalem and Gaza Strip, and requesting that these information to be amended accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, your statement has been noted. I didn't hear any question. It's the statement.
And it's, sorry, only just to indicate that there are a question about the area covered, whether it is covering the West Bank and East Jerusalem or not. This is the question. Thank you.
Thank you. So as I said, your intervention was carefully noted. And let me also remind that I also said that the discussion at this workshop aims to increase the transparency of mitigation actions and their effects. And the discussion is not about the domestic policies, which we are not going to evaluate. I would also like to say that in the modalities and guidelines for ICA, especially paragraphs 56 to 62 of the decision to CP17, Annex 4 to this decision, say that's exactly the statement that they include, and raising any topics that are not related to transparency of mitigation action does not belong to the scope of this process. So just wanted to use this opportunity to remind everybody that this is what we are discussing here. However, of course, your status as the party of the convention and your rights as the party to the convention and Paris Agreement are recognized by the international community, and this is no doubt about it. Thank you very much. The next question comes from New Zealand.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Israel, for your presentation and also for providing answers to our written questions before this session, and also congratulations on the publication of your first BUR. I've just got a quick question as a follow-up from one of the slides you had in your presentation regarding the mitigation action plan. So I was wondering if Israel can please share experiences on the process it undertook to establish this mitigation action plan, and in particular on how it determined what share of emissions reductions should come from different sectors of the economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Brazil, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on distinguished representative of Israel on the presentation. Just one question that we have. In this context of transition from coal to natural gas and renewables, what kind of renewables are you aiming at? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see other flags. Israel, please answer the questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and all the questions. Okay, so I'll start with the question raised by China. Israel has undertaken a number of different steps to basically encourage the development and the further expansion of our clean tech industry, and a key aspect of this policy is to encourage public-private partnership to raise the funds that are necessary to support R&D, extensive R&D programs, and also to encourage the demonstration of technologies that have completed their R&D phase and are now about to demonstrate their capacity and their viability. With regard to the first aspect, the chief scientist in the Ministry of Economy in Israel runs a program that provides assistance, and that assistance is then matched by funding from the private sector, and that incentivizes that public-private partnership. there are other programs and ways whereby public intervention allows and assists for private funding to be tailored towards investments in R&D phases of different technologies. And as you can see, or as you saw in the graph, we incentivize technology development in different areas ranging from water, agriculture, energy, and other areas relevant to climate change. Just with regard to the beta site incentivization of new technologies, there are different bureaucratic barriers that the government is now working to remove and enable or facilitate greater demonstration of new technologies. Also, I should add that within the context of our national implementation plan, the government allows for additional grants to be directed towards the demonstration of new technologies, especially in energy efficiency areas. Regarding the question related to the emissions, Israel is accounting for electricity emissions that it provides to the Palestinian Authority. With regard to the process of preparing the BUR, Israel has undertaken a major consultation process whereby a lot of different stakeholders from the different parts of the economy and also different NGOs and experts were involved in this process. And data collection also involved working together with different utilities and other organizations in order to ensure that the data that we reported is consistent and has gone through quality assurance process. With regard to the renewable makeup of Israel, at the moment, the vast majority of our renewable energy generation comes from solar PV, but there are other technologies that contribute to that, to the renewable energy, and these range from biogas, from waste, and a little bit of wind energy. Looking to the future, looking to the future, the vast majority of the energy is going to be generated by solar, primarily PV, but also a little bit of solar thermal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't see any of the parties willing to ask the floor. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the facilitative sharing of views and the ICA round for the Israel's biennial update report. And we are now moving to Malaysia, and I invite Dr. Azimuddin Bahari to deliver his brief presentation. You've got the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. Malaysia is very delighted to be given the opportunity to present the country's views in this facilitative sharing of views session this afternoon. And we are also very appreciative to countries and parties that have submitted their questions, whereby we receive about 12 questions, and it shows that we are the second most popular country to receive questions next to India, who receives 13 questions. And with that, we will answer the questions as we go by during our presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, as we saw this morning, Indonesia is also near to Malaysia. We are in the Southeast Asia, whereby Indonesia is our very close neighbor. Indonesia is on the east and west of Malaysia, and Malaysia comprises of the peninsula of Malaysia, and together with Sabah and Sarawak, which is on the island of Borneo, also neighboring to Indonesia. And this afternoon, we'll see our colleague from Thailand presenting, and they are our northern neighbor. And the total area for Malaysia is 330,183 square kilometers, which is more than 18 million hectares. And we have a population of we have a population of 29.1 million. The forest cover for our country throughout the whole of Malaysia is 54.5%. And this forest cover, we are very proud of it in the sense that we have made our pledge, whereby our Prime Minister, Right Honourable Prime Minister, has made a pledge in Copenhagen that we will maintain our forest cover not less than 50%. And it was again reiterated by our Minister of Natural Resources and Environment recently in Paris in COP21 that we will hold on to this pledge of having our forest cover which is not less than 50%. Our main agriculture crop is palm oil. And looking into our economic activities of our GDP, our GDP is USD 233,300 million. And from this GDP, our service industry comprise of the 55% of the GDP, followed by secondly from the manufacturing, which is 25%. And moving on into looking at our institutional arrangements for the preparation of our NC and BOR, at the very top of our structure is the National Steering Committee. We have the National Steering Committee on Climate Change, and the focal point within this committee is the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. And below this National Steering Committee is the National Communication and Biennial Update Report. And following that, we have the one that does the operationalizing of the mitigation measures as well as the inventories for GHG for the NC and BOR under the project management group, and which supports all the policy matters which comes from the National Steering Committee. And how things is being done is that we have six technical working committees, and these technical committees which comprise of our inventory, GHG inventory technical working committee, the mitigation technical working committee, and so on, whereby how the committee works is that within the working committees on, let's say we take, for example, we are relating to the question by New Zealand, whereby New Zealand posed that New Zealand questions on the procedures and institutional arrangements for assessing the effect of mitigation actions, as well as plans for enhancing these arrangements. Malaysia's mitigation actions were quantified by the respective implementing agencies under the guidance of the Technical Working Group on Mitigation. So we have the group on mitigation, whereby this is the working group on mitigation, and the part of the subsectors within the technical working group will come up with the quantification within the respective implementing bodies. So these are the implementing bodies whereby the ministries and agencies will be placed within these subsectors, and these agencies will then come up with a quantification which will be looked at by the mitigation technical working groups. And once it's being looked into and approved by this mitigation technical working group, it will be passed over to the project management group. And then for the verification aspect, which is the measuring, reporting, and verification technical working group, will look into the submissions by the mitigation technical working group. The same goes for if there is the matter which relates with GHG inventory technical working group, whereby all the quantifications within the GHG inventory will then be submitted to the project management group, which will also submit to the Measuring, Reporting and Verification Technical Working Group, which will then verify all the quantifications that is being carried out by the various working groups. And the approvals will then come up to the National Steering Committee on all the submissions. Looking into the GHG inventory, the energy sector contributed to 76% of the total GHG emissions in 2011, followed by the waste sector at 12% and the industrial processes at 6%. And the total emissions was about 290,000 gigagram of carbon dioxide equivalent, and the net emission is reduced to 27,000 gigagram CO2 equivalent if sinks are also taken into account. So if we take into account of the sinks, the amount has already been reduced to substantially to only 27,228. And we are also proud to say that despite of the difficulties on our data collection, Malaysia is able to account for emissions and removals from 1990 to 2011 as reflected in the graph, especially for the energy and the agricultural sector. Looking at the pie chart, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the pie chart here, CO2 accounts for 72% of the total emissions, while methane accounted for 26%, and the nitrous oxide accounts for 5% of the total emission. And looking again into the sectors which comes up with the contributions of the emission, the main contributors are from energy within the subsector of the energy industries on the public energy, which is the emission is at 30.5%, and followed by the energy from the transport, which is on the road transportation, which is at 14.4%. The policies which relates on the mitigation actions for Malaysia is that we have the National Climate Change Policy, and this is the policy which is considered as the umbrella policy for other policies under the sectoral policies, which is the custodian of other ministries and agencies. And we are also guided by the Economic Transformation Program, and we mentioned a lot about decoupling of our economic growth in relation to our GHG emissions. And the Economic Transformation Program will look into the economic part of how we should move with the emissions reductions as well as the progressiveness of our economy. And within the operationalization of our policies, we have our 5-year national development plans, and these 5-year national development plans will then lay out the planning aspect within every 5 years on how we should go about with our mitigation programs. To be more specific of how we look at our policies in relation to our sectors, the sectors we are looking at here are the energy, transport, LULUCF, agriculture and waste sectors, and the policies that relates to each and every one sector which is under the governance of various ministries. For example, if you look at the energy sector, we have the National Renewable Energy Policy and Action Plans. We also have the National Energy Efficiency Action Plans, and the interventions within these policies are to look into the aspect of renewable energy as our fuel mix, and we consider as the 5th fuel for us on this renewable energy. And also the aspect of energy efficiency in industry, commercial and residential sectors. If you look into the other aspect of sectors on land and land use, the most important policies that governs this land use, which relates to forestry and land use, are the National Forestry Policy. We have the National Biodiversity Policy and the National Commodity Policy, and this will support the sustainable forest management, which I've already mentioned earlier on, that we have a very high forest cover, and that very high forest cover requires good governance of our forests, and is being put and is being used under our sustainable forest management. The mitigation actions and their effects. The emission reduction registered in the BOR for 2013 was 18,579, and looking to the estimation made on the potential emissions reduction for 2020, you can see that here for 2020, our estimation is at 32,178. On this matter, we would also like to highlight that the US has requested for clarifications on the methodologies and assumptions used for quantifying potential emission reductions in 2020 from mitigation actions. And we would like to inform that the impacts of mitigation actions for the year 2013 was quantified based on revised 1996 IPCC guidelines. As the mitigation actions listed for 2013 will continue until 2020 and beyond, Malaysia used the same assumptions and methodologies to quantify the potential GHG emissions reductions for 2020. These are based on the approved projects under each action identified. Malaysia also participated in the International Market Mechanism, that is the CDM, and the VCS. These actions are not considered as part of our domestic actions. In looking at the country's achievements over its mitigation actions, Malaysia has achieved an emission intensity of GDP reduction of 23% in 2017 compared to 2005 values. The per capita emissions over the corresponding periods also improved by 9%. You can see a number of countries mentioning about BUR, and we are very confident that with our reductions of 23.2% in 2013, we will definitely be able to achieve our NDC, which is at 40%, 45% by 2030, which is 35% conditional, 35% unconditional, and 10% conditional. So we are very sure that we'll be able to achieve, as our progress, as we can see here, is in the part of we are moving in a very progressive phase here. And in relation to this matter, Switzerland has requested information on our domestic MRV arrangements as well as the challenges associated with it. Our country's MRV process is coordinated by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, while the monitoring and measurement activities are within the respective implementing agencies. The TWG on GHG inventory and the TWG on mitigation coordinates the estimation. The verification activities are undertaken by the TWNRE, consisting of the multi-agency experts. The challenges and barriers. So looking at the number of questions received, it is also a good indicator that the report that we have produced has been a very comprehensive report, but we have to admit that in preparing this report is not a very easy task for us, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in coming up with this report. And on this note, Malaysia has identified some challenges and barriers, which includes the technical and resource limitation. One of our challenges is in developing a robust MRV system for mitigation actions. Specifically, the main challenge is to develop guidelines and standards for mitigation effects across the different sectors. Malaysia is applying a stepwise approach where the technical guidelines and standards will be improved over time. This and the preceding slide answers EU's questions on the progress of the MRV system for the mitigation actions. On the part of the support received and needed, we can see that the support we received since 2010 was on mitigation, adaptation, capacity building, and cross-cutting. But the most important aspects that we would like to highlight today is on the needs, whereby on the needs, we are looking to the mitigation parts. Under the finance of the mitigation scope is that on the renewable energy feed-in tariff, there's a requirement of 500 million in Malaysian ringgit. And also on the technology, we require the geothermal, and we can also indicate later on that we also require the wind as well as other kind of technologies, as well as the solar, as the coverage of our cloud coverage is very high, and we get only about 4 hours of direct sun, and that requires new technologies to help us in this aspect. On the capacity building, we require also the needs on the robust and RV system, GHG accounting project, GHG accounting, project modeling, and for the needs assessment as well. And the other part of it, if you look into the RED Plus, is also another part under mitigation which also requires financing, and we are looking at a part of USD 400 million for the financing of the RED Plus, which again relates with our good governance and the conservation of our forested area. And for the technology part is the part that we require the forest monitoring system to move forth with the conservation and better management of our forests. And for the GHG inventory is a GHG inventory system that is required under our needs. Within the preparation of our BUR and ICA process, the most important question is what have we gained in our preparation of our BUR and our ICA process? Under the institutional arrangement, there is now greater ownership built across ministries and agencies, and the setup of TWGs has been able to build up the capacity of the TW experts. Under the MRV system, there is the realization for operationalizing system for continuous data collection and the requirement for timely and concise reporting. We now recognize the importance of tracking progress of mitigation actions and to improve methodologies for quantifying mitigation effects. And on capacity building, we can say that we have been able to increase the capacity and capabilities of the national GHG inventory compilers and have created international collaboration with various agencies. Okay. For areas of improvement since the technical analysis, areas of improvement for the technical analysis are that the technical analysis has improved the understanding of the UNFCCC decisions on BR reporting requirements. On this note, in relation to the EU's question, Malaysia agrees that the TTE has identified capacity building needs following our priorities. And in moving forward, Malaysia will use the 2006 IPCC guidelines for the GHG inventory estimation. More mitigation actions will definitely be implemented and quantified. And responding to questions received, questions from the EU and France, looking to these questions on the questions of missing historical data for GHG inventory, Malaysia is engaging with the relevant stakeholders. Additional data are being collected, and the data are required as follows. For the waste sector, the biological treatment of solid waste, open burning of waste and incineration. For the industrial processes sector, historical data for the cement production and petrochemical subsector data has been obtained from 1990 onwards. For the transport sector, engagement with the stakeholders are ongoing to improve the historical data. And on the questions pertaining to sinks, although the total forest area has declined between 1994 and 2011, more forest areas were managed under sustainable management of forests. And during the same period, the tree crop areas increased from 4.15 million hectares to 6.05 million hectares. These are increments that contributes to the increase of sinks. Questions from the EU. In answering the questions on LULUCF sector on GHG inventory from EU, Malaysia has provided assumptions for the grassland, wetlands, and settlements. For these subsections, no changes in carbon stocks or management occurred. For wetlands, no new draining of peatlands and peat extraction activities occurred in 2011, hence no estimates were made. On the question on BUR guidelines, also from EU, interpretation of the BUR guidelines vary between countries, TTE and UNFCCC Secretariat, and therefore, more training would enhance the common interpretation of the guidelines. With that, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. And our chair, Thomas, he has a very urgent and important engagement, so I have the honor to chair the rest of this morning section. And now I open the floor for parties to raise their question. I have EU, Japan, China, Germany, Australia, Austria, Korea, and EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And congratulations to Malaysia for its first BUR. And thank you for answering our questions during the written phase and also for your excellent presentation today. My question is related to your greenhouse gas inventory. You actually mentioned in your presentation the challenge of availability of activity data and of country-specific emission factors. But can you tell us what your highest priorities are in relation to greenhouse gas inventory improvements? Thank you.
Thank you. Japan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you very much, Malaysia, for your very informative presentation. And I have follow-up question for the MLB system, which you show in the presentation. To regularly prepare the BUR, we believe that you had to establish the continuous MRV system. I mean, you had to enhance the continuity or sustainability of the MLB system. And in that development process, if you have any lesson learned or good practice, could you share with us? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now invite China.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations for Malaysia for the very, very comprehensive presentation, and that we could benefit a lot from your experience. And we have a question that we noted that the promotion of renewable energy is a priority for Malaysia, and you have just mentioned that the lack of technology is one of the challenge you face to develop the solar. So could you please elaborate more challenges you face on the promotion of renewable energy? Thank you.
Next is Germany.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Malaysia for the comprehensive presentation and also addressing already many of our questions of Germany and EU in advance. I would like to follow up on the MRV arrangements that you have outlined, well, in the BUR and now also in your presentation, and where you said that the domestic MRV is still under development and there are some challenges related to developing guidelines and standards. So my question would be, could you provide a brief update on the status of these MRV processes and development, and whether you think these will be already in place for the next BUR? Thank you.
Before I give the floor to Malaysia to provide its answer, but just remind colleagues that please limit the number of questions within 3, so that we have enough time to address those questions. Malaysia, if we are ready, please provide your response to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. On the first question from EU, which is on the GHG improvements, we are moving to the 2006 IPC guidelines, and that can be a very big step for us improving our GHG inventory. And we have the help of external reviewers, and this will be able to help us in coming up with very good inventories, and we still require more external reviewers to help us with looking into our GHG improvements to overcome some technical gaps here. And also the other one is with funding. We hope that with funding to build up a very good GHG inventory system, which is a comprehensive and all-encompassing system. For the second question, which was from Japan, Mr. Chairman, on the MRV system, the establishment of the MRV system within our country. How we do it is that we have the national experts to look into the MRV systems, and at the same time, we also have the experts, independent experts, to also look into our NRV systems, whereby if there is on mitigations or the part of GHG inventory, whereby one of those reviewers that independent reviewers that we have used in looking at our system is from US EPA. So there is one, but we have other independent parties that also help us in looking at our system. And the third question, which was from China, is on the RE. This is one part that we really require help, because we are only targeting about 7.8% of RE development in the year 2020. So that is not very big for us, as presently we only have the capacity of about 4.8% of the overall energy supply, and we intend to increase to 7.8 by 2020. But possibly with the technology aspect, with the help of technology, part of it will be on the solar and also the wind. We can then have a much higher figure as what we project at this moment, which is only 7.8 by 2020. And the last question will be on the part of Germany. Yes, and it's the question on the MRV, and is on the domestic NRV, whereby it's on the enhancing of MRV system again, with the development of the standards and procedures. And here again, the requirement for increasing of MRV requirements, although we at this moment we have experts coming in to help us, but we can move further and have a more comprehensive domestic MRV with more national experts that can be trained. As what we are doing at this moment is that we have already come up with decisions whereby the various ministries have got to come up with their own capabilities in looking into the part of the GHG inventory emissions and also the part of mitigations, and that is why we require more training so that we can give all ministries the adequate training that is required to understand the UNFCCC requirements and also the new guidelines which we are moving on with the IPCC new guidelines. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your response. I now invite Austria, and then Korea and Luxembourg and US.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Malaysia, for this very comprehensive presentation. You presented challenges and barriers, also in inventory preparation, and in the VUR, Malaysia transparently identifies the constraints and gaps related to further improvements of the GHG inventory. In that section of the VUR, Malaysia proposes possible steps that have been identified and actions that have been taken to overcome such challenges. It is then stated, and you also mentioned it just before in one of your replies, that support will be needed to implement such actions. Could you please elaborate a bit on some of the steps which have already been taken and on the progress towards overcoming such challenges in inventory preparation? Thank you.
Thank you. And now invite Republic of Korea.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your very nice presentation. I have two questions. Malaysia mentioned that there is a challenge for activity data. And what activity data does Malaysia consider the most urgent to improve their quality? And what are your plans to improve the quality of the activity data? Second one is, this is the inventory question. I saw the GH emission from LULUCF sector in 2011 was 10 times lower than that of in 2005. Within 5 years, there was very dramatic decrease. So what caused the dramatic decrease in GH emissions from LULUCF sector during that time? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Lassenberg.
Yes, good morning, and I join the other delegation to thanks to Malaysia for the comprehensive and explanatory presentation, as well as already for the very good answers to the questions. And actually, my question was about capacity building, where you identify on your slides a robust MFV system, but you already had questions about it and replied to it. There was also greenhouse gas accountability. I think the question of Forestry will cover that. Then you also spoke about projections, modeling for projections, and some needs assessment. And my question is about the fact that, do you think you will be able to implement all these challenges that you identified there for capacity building and needs for your next reporting in the biennial update report? And there's also this element that you identified mirroring what was coming out from the technical review of your first biennial report, update report, or is it also needs that you identify yourself as being really, really the priority for you? Thank you very much.
Thank you. The US.
Thank you for your informative presentation. The United States has 2 questions. First, we commend Malaysia on its intention to use the 2006 IPCC guidelines in the preparation of future greenhouse gas inventories. Can you please describe how you decided to make that transition and what institutional and technical steps you are taking to do so? Second, it was noted in the technical analysis summary report that Malaysia has identified some steps and actions to overcome the challenges in preparing the inventory. For example, activity data generation, lack of historical data in some sectors, and more. Can Malaysia please elaborate on some of those steps and actions it has identified and whether they might be applicable to other countries in similar positions?
You can now invite our last speaker, India.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations to Malaysia for making a very brilliant presentation. We note that the forest cover is around 50% plus in Malaysia. Congratulations for preserving forest cover, because you see, this gives us confidence that development need not come at the cost of green assets. We are also in India able to maintain forest cover and increase it and yet develop. So that is one. Very many congratulations for very good presentation. We would just want you to throw some more light, Malaysia, on renewable energy plans and policies that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. And I know there are a lot of questions waiting for Malaysia to make his response. If you are ready, please. Yes, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll start off with the last question I received from my colleague from India. And yes, we have our forest cover, which is at 54.5%. And how we do it is that we have a very good forest governance under our sustainable forest management. And we convert the forest into permanent reserve forests. And once we convert into permanent reserve forests, the forests remain intact, whereby there is no interference of our forest usage anymore. And going back to the question by Austria, which is on the constraints and gaps identified, and also the problems, how the support that is required in order to overcome our constraints and gaps. We see that we require the improvement over our data collection, especially on the missing categories and also new categories. So this can greatly help us if we can overcome the gaps of the data collections over the categories that are missing, as well as we look into the new categories as well. On the question from Korea on the challenges, what data is to improve the quality of the estimation? Data in industrial process and product use and water and the waste sector. And for the industrial process and product use sector, continuous engagement with the private sector will help us overcome the problem of the data collection and estimation. So once again, the requirement is that we would look into the aspect of working together with the private sector in order to help overcome the problem of the data collection and also the part of the quality of the data estimation. Okay. And for the question from Korea on the part of our LULUCF, the reduction in emissions from LULUCF is due to the reduced rate of deforestation and reduced harvesting intensity from the commercial harvest. And on the question for Luxembourg, which is on the capacity building and the projections of the needs assessment, yes, we have the challenges with us, and we intend to look into having a robust MRV. And Malaysia has already indicated that in order to overcome a robust MRV, we have our gaps as well. And the gaps are on the capacity building of our national compilers and also our national experts. So before we are able to come up with the robust MRV, we need help to overcome the part of the increase in capacity and capabilities of our national experts. And the question from my colleague from US, why, for what reason we are moving for the 2006 guidelines, is that this is an updated method for some categories, and the IPCC software has built in the quality control process, though still we have the limitations, and we have the requirements whereby we need to also overcome challenges, although we have a very big heart to move to this 2006 guidelines, but we need to overcome some of the challenges on the building of the capacity on the continuous approach since 2011. And at the same time, again, I would like to repeat whereby we would like to extend our appreciation and say thank you to US EPA for their help in this endeavor. So without their help at the time when we were doing our reviews, it's quite difficult for us to build up our capacity. And another area where we can overcome the challenges is the engagement with the various stakeholders continuously. And that is where we can build up their national expertise. And again, the national expertise will also require expertise from various countries, for example, again, from US, to build up our capabilities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank Malaysia for its excellent work and also congratulate you for completing this very important task. Now let's move on to our next party, Mauritania. I would like to invite the representative from Mauritania, Mr. Al-Wawi Sidi Mohammed, to deliver his brief presentation. Sir, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, colleague. Thank you for this opportunity to wish, allow me share with you the vision of the Mauritania. Excuse me, my English is not very good. It's bad, but I will make effort for this presentation. Summary, this presentation is in 3 parts. Part 1, summary of beer and recent development. Part 2, experience and lesson learned in participating in the ICA process. And part 3, the response for the question received. For the national circumstance, the Mauritania is a small country. It's not India or Indonesia. We have population is 3,500,000 inhabitants. The GDP is 4.29 billion US in 2040. Mauritania targeting a growth rate of 6.8% in 2014. The climate in Mauritania is totally desert country, is north part, and Saharan in the southern part. Its climate is characterized by high temperature, exceeding the 40 degrees Celsius. The annual rainfall is between 150 and 600 millimeter. In the south part of country. While the Sahara area is between 50 and 150 millimeter. For the recent document furnished by Mauritania, submitted by Mauritania in the recent report submitted to Secretariat in 21/2, the third national communication in climate change at July 2040, and the INDC at 2050. For the national mitigation sector commitment, Mauritania intends to contribute to Paris Climate Agreement by reducing in greenhouse gas emission in 2030 by 22.3%, corresponding to 4.2 billion ton on carbon dioxide equivalent CO2. This contribution in relation to the projected emission for 23, according to the scenario of the BOW, which evolves from 6.6 megaton CO2 in 2010. 8 megaton CO2 equivalent in 23. For the sector affected by the commitment, they are many in the following sector in this energy, industrial process and product use, agriculture, forestry and land use, and waste. This is national context and institutional arrangement as a part of the ongoing effort to improve the quality of inventory. The CCPNCC is the unit for coordination climate change coordination unit. Initiated established with the sectoral ministry, the sectoral focal point on the climate change to both conduct the sectoral beer and act as interface of the structure responsible for the compilation and general coordination of the national beer. This innovation has encouraged sectorial ministry to the responsible for their respective inventory and contribution with a view to improving the quality of the sectoral data of the preparation of low carbon and sectoral strategy. This approach is evolving toward the expansion of the system sectoral working group or the sectoral task force along with an implication of an independent academic arbitral authority comprising their research unit from academic institution and civil society. For the implementation chart, this is a structure of national arrangement. The Ministry of Environment is institution of pilot this activity, and this is structure the coordination unit climate change, the coordination body, the unit climate change unit. This is a bit of project management and the NAP technical, the beer technical team and the multiple sector relevant for this activity. This is a global implemented chart for the enable activity for climate change, NAP and beer and national communication. For the GHG inventory, the total GHG inventory trend in 2012, Mauritania total net greenhouse emission was estimated at 70.5 gigagram equivalent CO2 based on carbon dioxide and methane, or 2.1 ton CO2 equivalent per capita. This is two figure to repartition the emission for the sector in 2012. The sector Afulu has 64.7%. The sector energy have 34.9%. For the repartition, the gas of emission, the CH the methane is 78.03%, and the CO2 is 31.3% in CO2. This is the evolution for the emission GHG in Mauritania. In 2012 emission direct greenhouse accepted GYP are 1 to 7%. Above this of 1990. Between 1990 and 200, low emission growth is 98% excluding Afolu. For the action, mitigation action and effect, the energy sector has carried out several actions in the field of the renewable energy promotion. Here, party in Nouakchott solar power plant, 15 megawatt, and Nouakchott wind power plant, 30 megawatt, and other projects are underway. LPG liquefaction of petrol gas, 180 megawatt. The Afolu sector is aware of action with potential for emission reduction. This is a sim repartition for next for mitigation action for energy. The table is avoidance of CO2 emission from the current strategy. The evolution in between 2005 year and 2040 year. The obstacle and during the beer preparation exercise, many challenges were identified. Gap in national capacity for the preparation of beer, gap and constraint in identifying and monitoring implementation of mitigation measures, particularly NAMA described its potential. Gap and constraint is assessing technical need on the capacity building and mobilizing financial resource despite great potential. It's also clear that the development and the implementation of sound institutional arrangement will require time before it become fully operational and operating without barrier. Part 2, experience and lessons learned in participating in the ICA process. Participating in the ICA process highlighted many confusion and the profile of climate measure at the national level. One, clarification of the vision of sectoral climate action. 2, improvement of the national system of beer and national communication. Enhancing transparency of reporting and area for improvement. Participation in the ICA preparation of beer technical analysis have all served as a starting point for the dynamization of the national system of preparation of beer and national communication. Enhancing transparency of the reporting and directly at the end of the ICA process, a dialogue with the stakeholder resulted in programming the implementation of a domestic MRV. This is a figure for the progress scenario of processes. Part 3 for this presentation is the response to question received. Mauritania has received multiple questions by the European Union for question. This is a response. One question, however, limited detailed information is furnished on potential barrier and the necessary need that might arise from the development of the MRV system. Could the party explain the progress and the current state of its MRV system already in place? 3, what are the main challenges encouraged in the developing a country-wide MRV system? And 4, what are the specific related capacity building needed, and what are the priority steps identified by the country in order to build of MRV system? For the response, this is a table for description of obstacle and challenge and the need. This is a response for this first question. Addressing the 4 priority needs are the meet for the short term, and they have been already raised to UNEP in partnership DTE, seeking funding so that they get addressed even prior to requesting BIR 2. Otherwise, this 4 priority will be addressed in priority during BIR 2 prior to its submission as a final output to UNFCCC Secretariat. Our first experience for other question, our first experience during the preparation of BIR Mauritania in that we really applying the 2006 IPCC guideline. The main reason is that we found the suggest guideline were in fact not very detailed and keep confusing in the referencing made to the revised IPCC 96 guideline. It is during the ICA process that the Mauritania team could establish in the guidance of TTA, team technique expert, the linkage between the guideline of the decision to CP17 and the other IPCC guideline via the technical analysis table. The lesson to be learned is to bring attention to the UNFCCC Secretariat. Mauritania have received a question by New Zealand, 2 questions. What area, if any, has Mauritania identified where data might be future improved in the future BIR through capacity building? And in what way has the technical analysis process been helpful in identifying such area? the response. During the ICA process, the Mauritania team discovered several weaknesses in the data quality of activity, particularly in the Afolo sector. Mauritania is a desert and height mobility breeding country because of the lack of pastoral resource and where the census in both very experienced and difficult to administer. Consequently, the use of estimate instead of the statistical census become easier and less expensive. This situation can, however, be greatly improved through the newly created Ministry of the Livestock in 2016. A capacity building program could be initiated with the aim of administrating survey and sampling or eventual upon of use of the satellite image to get precise figure of this for pillar of the economy. The ICA process has helped to establish to large difference of emission figure resulting from the driving style of the animal favoring style to transhumance and census to estimate as to meet forecast emission and mitigation target in the countries NDC. For the last question, but is not question, the title is experience with inventory preparation. This is a paragraph for the United States of America. Experience with inventory preparation tool. Congratulations to Mauritania for submitting its first beer and for applying the 2006 IPCC guideline. Mauritania appraised the United States of America assessment and for its congratulations that are certainly motivated. We would be even happy if we could share this point of view, which could lead to more enriching debate for use and for our compatriots who have not had the chance to be in Bonn. This is last question, and thank you for your attention. For your directly question, to better understand your question, allow me for being assisted by and translation by my colleague Komi. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Mauritania for its very comprehensive presentation, and now open the floor for parties' questions. I have EU. Okay, EU, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And special congratulations as well to Mauritania, because we heard this morning that it was the first LDC to submit its PUR. So that's the case. Congratulations. It was very good. Also, thank you for your thorough presentation today and also including the answers to our questions. Have only two short questions. One is, can you tell us a bit more about your highest priorities in relation to your greenhouse gas inventory improvements? And the other question is whether you have identified priority needs that could be addressed in the short term so that you can implement them before your next BUR submission. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the US.
We commend Mauritania for setting an example for LDCs and SIDS in submitting its first biennial update report. What benefits or opportunities did you find from preparing the report that may be helpful for those less familiar with the reporting process?
Thank you. I see no further request for the floor. I now invite a colleague from Mauritania to respond to those questions. I think that's fine. You can speak French and then your colleague could help to translate.
Merci beaucoup. Pour la question de l'Union européenne, quelles sont les priorités, si je comprends, pour l'inventaire de gaz à effet de serre pour la Mauritanie? Pour la Mauritanie, ce qui est un peu le paradoxe qui peut être là, c'est que la majeure partie des gaz à effet de serre émis au niveau national est du méthane. Ceci peut révéler déjà la priorité pour la Mauritanie en termes de mitigation pour des politiques dans le cadre de la transhumance, parce que la Mauritanie est un vaste pays qui regroupe environ 20 millions de têtes. Ce qui fait que les émissions liées à la production animale, au cheptel, sont extrêmement élevées. Déjà, elles représentent vers 68% des émissions du pays. Pour cela, la priorité pour nous est de pouvoir asseoir une politique qui limite ces effets.
Thank you. The priority of inventory is related to methane emission reduction because Mauritania count approximately 20 million of livelihood. So it is important by this and we know that growing emit a lot of greenhouse gas. So this aspect is very important for Mauritania. The much important greenhouse gas emission reduction is coming from this sector.
Des États-Unis, c'est quoi?
Ils ont dit quelque chose, je n'ai même pas saisi. If, please, we would like to know if the United States should please repeat the question.
Of course. So the question was, what benefits or opportunities did you find from preparing your first biennial update report that may be helpful for those less familiar with the reporting process?
Quelles leçons peut-être vous tirez pour cette première
ce que nous tirons comme leçon pour le premier process, pour le premier BIR, c'est que on fait le premier pas dans le cadre de la prise en charge de l'aspect transparence. C'est pas une question facile. Avec des pays encore peu structurés pour la circonstance, où l'inventaire de gaz n'est pas une priorité, la mitigation n'est pas une priorité. Déjà, avec le processus qu'on a mené avec ICA, il y a une meilleure compréhension qui va améliorer la transparence et la prise en charge sectorielle de cette transparence.
This first experience is not so easy, but the lesson learned from this is that it gives the fundamental basis for the future preparation of other BR.
Thank you very much, Mauritania. I hope that both EU and the US already got a very satisfactory response from our colleagues from Mauritania, and that concludes the SFV of Mauritania and also this morning's section. And I would like to suspend the morning and resume this afternoon at 3 p.m. We will have another 5 parties this afternoon for the SFV. I now thank you very much for your participation.